Hi guys, welcome back. How many books did you read this month? Because I only read 3. I don't typically do wrap-ups, but I really need the structure in my life right now because I am moving to New York City in 3 days. Once I'm there, I'm still going to be filming videos, but this is the last time you're going to see this setup for a while. Without further ado, let's just jump right into it. The first book I'm going to talk about is 13 Reasons Why by J. Asher. This book has been very heavily covered in the media recently because there was a Netflix series adaptation. Today, I'm just going to be talking about the book because I did not watch the series. If you are not already familiar with the storyline, it is basically about a young boy named Clay Jensen who one day receives 13 tapes in the mail anonymously. He soon discovers that they were pre-recorded by a young girl named Hannah Baker, who is a young girl in his school who had recently taken her life. Clay is very surprised at the fact that he's getting these tapes because he always seemed to have a very amicable relationship with Hannah, and spends most of the book basically trying to figure out why he's on these tapes and having to listen to all the previous tapes before him. Objectively, I think the structure of the book doesn't really serve the content material very well. It basically is a series of flashbacks where in the present time, we just have Clay listening to the tapes. On the other side of it, we have the flashbacks, which Clay sort of falls into as he's listening to these tapes that Hannah gave him. I did not feel very much for Clay. There wasn't a lot of exposition establishing him as a character that we can really get behind or dislike. There really just isn't anything. I also think that the pacing in this book is kind of poor. People say that it's like a thriller and it's very fast paced, but I actually really struggled to get through the book. I found there to be chapters that sort of just drag on and sort of redelivering the same information again and again, and it got very tedious for me. Subjectively, I had to be careful with this book because the concept of delivering tapes to a group of people claiming that you are the reason why I took my life, I do not think is the best way to write a book about mental illness. I am invested personally in reading books about mental illness because there are many people in my family who suffer from severe depression and anxiety. If the book is good and I found that it sort of delivered a hopeful message or an important message, I sometimes will give the book to these people. However, I would not give this book to someone that I know suffers from mental illness. What this book ends up doing is sort of isolating the individual in their own cycle of regret and depression and anxiety. And while there are times where people feel very alone in their illnesses, there is always someone there for you to reach out to. This is a book that needs discussion. People need to talk about this book. So if you have your own thoughts, please leave them in the comment section below because I would love to start a discussion. On a bit of a lighter note, I also read Welcome to Night Vale by Joseph Fink and Jeffrey Cranor. I am a huge fangirl not only of this book but of the whole Night Vale universe. If you do not know about the Night Vale universe, you need to literally listen to the podcast yesterday. Night Vale is basically a small desert town that seems to be isolated from time and space or any kind of world that we know of. I believe it is supposed to be in California, but I'm not entirely sure. In Night Vale, everything is nonsensical, and that seems to make sense. If I had to describe it, I would say it would be like an episode of The Twilight Zone meets Alice in Wonderland in modern times. Definitely get like a hugely postmodernist feel. The book is very self-reflective. It's just so much fun. I enjoy this world so much. We are seeing a girl who doesn't appear in the podcast but in the book itself. Jackie, she runs a pawn shop, and as far as she knows, she's been 19 for years. She's just like, in Night Vale, time doesn't make sense. And we also have Diane, whose son takes multiple forms. So one day he might be a lampshade, and then another day he might be a deer with wings. And that's okay because in some way it reveals some important aspect having to do with the trouble of growing up. So basically we have Jackie, who one day this man comes in with a deerskin suitcase and he gives her a piece of paper that says King City. And then after that, this piece of paper will not leave her hand no matter what she does. And so the whole book is about this journey about where is King City, what does it have to do with her, and it ends up to be a very emotional and thought-provoking story about motherhood and relationships and growing up, and it's just so poignant and fun, and I cannot recommend this book or the podcast enough. The last book that I read in the month of May is The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This is another book that started getting a lot of traction recently because there was a series on it, and it's really starting a discussion about women's rights, and not just women's rights here in America, but in other countries, specifically Muslim countries, where the things that happen in this book are reality for the women living in these countries. Of course, it is a dystopian novel, so it is predicting the possibility of what would happen if there was a totalitarian regime happening in America. The entire book is from the perspective of Offred, who is a handmaid, which in this universe is a woman who is given to a wealthy couple, where the woman who is in the relationship can't have children. So her role in society is to live in this house, and once a month she has to do something called a ceremony where the man in the house tries to impregnate her. What I really love in this book is about 40 pages from the end, I'm thinking to myself, this could not happen. There's no way. And then in one little tidbit, like one chapter, it just becomes so real, and it's like, oh my gosh, this could happen, and it lays out exactly how it did happen. Something I found really interesting is in an interview, Margaret Atwood said that while this is a book for women, it is more a human story because women are humans, and I just thought that was so poignant and beautiful. This is a human story, and it's not just about the women, it's the men in it too, where not all of them are in the same place as the commander in the book. There's so many different levels of humanity, and everyone is different, and that is essentially why this world doesn't work, is because people don't fit into these little tiny boxes. They are complex, and they're interesting, and they do things, and you can't just say you are a handmaid, you are a wife. And I love the way that this book sort of pushes against this idea of having these categories, and it really makes you think about humanity as just people who are complex and who are just trying to get by and who just want love and they want relationships. This is just one of those books that I think everybody should read. It's a very, very short book. It only took me a few days to finish, but I could not recommend it enough. I started watching the series on Hulu, and it was actually very, very well shot. And Elizabeth Moss is just so kick-ass. Like, I cannot stress enough how much of a perfect casting that was. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really like doing wrap-ups. It feels very refreshing to verbalize all these thoughts and then start in June with a fresh slate. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Hit subscribe if you want to see what I'm going to be doing next. I hope you guys are having a great June so far, and I will see you soon. Bye!